So what's the difference between Bozeman and Missoula? Which one is better? Truly, the answer is going to depend on who you ask. So let's break down the similarities and differences of Montana's favorite college towns. We're even going to go into Google Maps so I can show you the locations and what sets each one apart. And of course, everything you need to know so you can decide for yourself. Bozeman is located in southwest Montana in more of a wide open valley and surrounded by mountains. So right here in the Gallatin Valley, the Bridgers, the Tobacco Roots, Spanish Peaks, and Gallatin Ranges are all around. It's also characterized by colder winters and more frequent sunshine compared to Missoula. Now, a little bit further north and west of the Continental Divide is where we're going to find Missoula. It's nestled in a river valley at the confluence of three rivers, the Clark Fork, Bitterroot, and Blackfoot. It's also surrounded by the Rattlesnake Wilderness, Bitterroot Mountains, and Sapphire Mountains, and known for milder winters compared to Bozeman. Now, both of them, no matter which one you choose, offer stunning natural beauty and outdoor recreation, but with different landscapes and specialties. The rivers in Missoula, for instance, and higher mountains and skiing near Bozeman. So let's go ahead and dive in and take a look at the location of the two different cities and why that matters here on the map. First and foremost, I wanted to point out where the Continental Divide runs through Montana. Essentially, it's the natural boundary that determines which rivers flow to the east and which flow to the west. And as you can imagine, that runs along a high mountain ridge for the most part here in Montana. So as you can see, runs here from the northern border over here and to the border of Montana and Idaho. You can also see from the terrain map here, and we're going to dive into Google Maps, just how close to the western border, how much further north it is, and how tucked into the mountains it is versus where Bozeman is in a much wider valley. So let's switch over here and take a look at that. Bozeman here is very much in this wide open Gallatin Valley, as I mentioned. Zooming out a little bit more, you can also see the proximity Bozeman has to Yellowstone National Park. It's about 1.5 hours in two different directions. You can actually enter down here through West Yellowstone versus down from Livingston into the north entrance at Gardner. Now, Missoula is right over here in the western or northwestern part of the state and much closer to not only Flathead Lake, but also Glacier National Park up here in the north. It's about a 2.5 hour drive away. And honestly, both national parks are wonderful. They're very different. I absolutely love both and try to visit each every single year if I can. But as I was saying, you can see when we zoom into Missoula, it's a much more narrow river valley here versus when we look at Bozeman and this much more wide open space. The elevation of each is actually quite different as well. As I just described it, being in this river valley, you might think that Missoula is a higher elevation. It's actually not. Missoula is at 3,200 feet above sea level and Bozeman is at 4,800 feet. And Missoula, as you can see here to the north, is only about 200 miles to the Canadian border. But as I mentioned before, both of them are surrounded by national forest and absolutely stunning vistas. Now let's talk a little bit more about the size and population of each one. As you can see here, this is Missoula city limits. The population is about 77,000. It is the second largest or highest population in the state of Montana, and the whole metropolitan area is estimated about 120,000 in population, and the city of Missoula covers about 29 square miles. Looking a little bit more closely at Bozeman here, the population is about 58,000. It's the fourth largest city in the state of Montana, and the greater Gallatin Valley probably has about 110,000 people, and the area of Bozeman covers about 19 square miles. And Bozeman has seen quite the boom over the past 5 years in population growth. The 5-year growth rate was about 19%, so that's more than 3% annual growth, where Missoula has seen just under 5% growth in the past 5 years, or about 1% annually. Bozeman has a lot of newer employers drawing people to Bozeman. There's a younger population demographic as well, where the median age in Bozeman is 28, and in Missoula it is 34. Now, of course, both of those numbers are going to be influenced heavily by the fact that they are college towns, and we'll get into that a little bit more here very soon. But Bozeman has really evolved from an agricultural college town to more of a tech hub, with the population of the town nearly doubling since 2000. Hey there, my name is Hallie with Life in Bozeman, Montana. This channel is all about living in, around, and near Bozeman, including Three Forks, Ennis, Big Sky, Livingston, Helena, and everywhere in between. If you're not already subscribed, I do publish a new video every single week, so if you want to make sure that you stay up to date on everything, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and let's dive right back into it. So overall, the weather in Montana is one thing I get a lot of questions about. We do have about 6 months of winter from sometime in November, typically to sometime in April. And while the two areas are not that far apart in distance, Missoula being on the western side of the Continental Divide, there are some differences. For instance, in Missoula, spring definitely comes sooner. Missoula has 4 distinct seasons with wetter springs and drier summers, and yes, it comes a few weeks earlier before that spring weather typically hits Bozeman. But annual snowfall in Missoula averages 40 inches per year, typically not remaining on the ground all winter, unlike Bozeman's average of 80 inches per year that definitely tends to stick around. Also, because Missoula is tucked into that smaller river valley, clouds and storms can get trapped and hang out with less overall sunshine, especially in those winter months. That protected valley can also create temperature inversions in winter and make winters milder, with the mountains on the west shielding the valley from some of that cold Arctic air. Though Chinook winds can create dramatic temperature changes in the Missoula Valley. And I will say, as far as a personal anecdote, every time we drive through Missoula, it is cloudy and socked in. I don't know that I've ever seen sunshine there, but we don't make it that direction all that often. Now, Bozeman, on the other hand, is known for its colder climate due to higher elevation. The mountains nearby see significantly more snow. And because of that wide open valley, there aren't the temperature inversions that Missoula sees. Bozeman can also be a little windier as a result, though. Overall, Bozeman sees a later spring and an earlier frost and snow than Missoula. Now, being that it is Montana, obviously outdoor recreation is a big thing here, and that is true for both Bozeman and Missoula. Missoula is a bit more water focused or river focused, with the "a river runs through it" identity that it has. Kayaking, floating the Clark Fork River, fishing, hiking the trails, and mountain biking, as well as rock climbing at Kootenai Canyon, and of course snow bowl for skiing in the winter. There are 6 major wilderness areas that are within a 2-hour drive of Missoula as well. In Bozeman, it's more about the mountains, skiing at Bridger and Big Sky, the Nordic ski trails in winter, fly fishing on the Gallatin, Madison, and Yellowstone rivers, hiking, mountain biking, rock climbing, and camping. Both towns feature multiple golf courses as well as hot springs nearby. I mentioned earlier the proximity of each of those national parks. Bozeman is known as the gateway to Yellowstone, and Missoula is closer to Glacier. And there's great outdoor recreation and amazing scenery in both. And as far as that skiing goes, Missoula has Snow Bowl just about 28 minutes outside of town, as you can see here, which is a relatively small ski area, especially when compared to the large ski area of Big Sky, which is just about an hour south of Bozeman. Now, both of them also have other ski areas, not to be forgotten by any means. What Bozeman is probably most known for, in fact, is Bridger Bowl ski area, which is right here on the other side of the Bridger Mountains, about 26 minutes from Bozeman as opposed to an hour. And about 2 hours, or just under 2 hours south of Missoula, is Lost Trail, which is a local favorite. It's an incredible ski area, but again, quite small when you compare it to the larger resorts. Now, both towns have wonderful outdoor festivals, farmers markets, and lots of events going on, particularly in the summer months. Music is a really big part of Missoula's offerings, though, while Bozeman is known more for the Museum of the Rockies and smaller performing arts spaces. Both areas are known for great fishing, hiking, biking, climbing, and cross-country skiing. As I mentioned before, both Bozeman and Missoula are college towns, the Montana State University in Bozeman and University of Montana in Missoula. U of M has roughly 10,000 students with a stagnant or declining enrollment, whereas MSU has closer to 17,000 students and keeps breaking enrollment records each year. Now, as far as sports goes, Montana doesn't have any pro football, pro basketball teams, anything like that. So the cross-state rivalry is a really big deal. Every late fall, the big game called the Brawl of the Wild takes place. This past year, that was November 23rd, 2024, the MSU Bobcats won here in Bozeman and then went on to end the season in January 15-1 in Texas for the FCS championship game, and it was a record-breaking year. In 2022, that Brawl of the Wild game was actually featured on ESPN's Game Day. The overall difference in the schools is notable. Bozeman is more focused on STEM programs with an engineering emphasis: mechanical, civil, and electrical engineering. There's also tech, agriculture, architecture, and nursing and health sciences. Missoula is more of a liberal arts school with strong programs in the humanities and forestry, as well as journalism and wildlife biology. Not to ruffle any feathers, but according to College Tuition Compare, MSU is not only cheaper than U of M, but also those applying have higher test scores. MSU has also seen a lot of significant campus expansion recently and construction, and the university's research activities drive a lot of Bozeman's tech industry growth. There's strong local heritage at both schools with a deep integration between the universities and their communities. One more point of comparison is crime. In Missoula, the crime rate is historically higher, both violent and property crime. Missoula is at 24.5, which is above the national average on a scale of 1 to 100, whereas Bozeman is at 14.5, which is below that national average. The Bozeman crime rate is the lowest of the 7 largest towns in Montana. Another point of comparison, quite simply, is transportation. Both Missoula and Bozeman have decently sized airports, though the traffic through the Yellowstone International Airport in Bozeman is much higher. Approximately 1.9 million passengers annually is more than double Missoula's 850,000. It's been said that Bozeman is also overall easier to navigate, or at least perceived that way by many. Both towns have Interstate 90 running through them or nearby, and when you get off the interstate is when you feel it in Missoula. The Bozeman grid is just perceived as more driver-friendly overall. According to a report from the city of Missoula, drivers get into more accidents in Missoula than Bozeman as well. Both towns have parking and traffic challenges, but Bozeman is more known for those challenges downtown and on the main commuter routes. Both Bozeman and Missoula also have public bus systems that are zero cost to riders, but they do have limited service, though Missoula's has better evening and weekend coverage. Missoula also has extensive infrastructure for bicycles, with lanes on many major streets and 22 miles of paved bike trails. While Bozeman has the Main Street to the Mountains trail system and is adding more bike lanes, it is definitely less comprehensive than Missoula. Now, I would say one of the biggest differences between the two towns is actually the cost of living, or the economy, and jobs. Both future job growth and the cost of living are actually lower in Missoula. The cost of living in Missoula is about 5% higher than the national average, whereas Bozeman is about 20% higher. Housing affordability in Bozeman and Missoula have been suffering the last several years, both in rent and home sales prices. Bozeman is among the most expensive in the region, though. Property taxes factored in as well. The Bozeman area sees property values and therefore taxes that are also among the highest. Now, both areas are also seeing some challenges with workforce shortages, particularly in the service industries due to those housing costs. Looking at future job growth, though, Bozeman is at 50.3%, whereas Missoula is at 33%. And according to bestplaces.net, the unemployment rate is lower in Bozeman. As far as major employers in Missoula, those include the healthcare sector, education, government, and retail. Bozeman has some similarities with major sectors for jobs in healthcare and education, but also has lots of opportunities in tech and tourism and hospitality. It's no secret that Bozeman has had a hard time keeping up with some of the growth. Construction, traffic, more people, all of these things create a buzz and bustle and energy, and overall, Bozeman does have a more upscale feel. Bozeman also has a growing manufacturing sector, particularly for outdoor equipment, and a significant presence of remote workers. Bozeman has a growing entrepreneurial ecosystem with multiple business incubators and a higher concentration of higher paying jobs, particularly in that tech industry. Missoula has a strong historical lumber and timber industry, though less significant than it once was. The town also has a strong small business sector with some great locally owned establishments. Tourism is a little bit of a commonality between the two towns, though less emphasized in Missoula as it is in Bozeman. And Missoula tends to be more quirky with vintage shops and, again, a little bit more laid back in general. So Bozeman definitely wins the more expensive category, but also has more projected growth and income potential. Now, one of the biggest part of the affordability challenges in both towns, but Bozeman especially, is housing costs. Now, if we take a look at some of the statistics, Bozeman and the greater Bozeman area, all residential properties, that's condos, townhomes, and single family, have a current median list price of $889,000 among the available 417 listings right now. Now, if we look at just single family homes in that same area, that median list price is $1.2 million, and there are 249 active listings. Now, the greater Bozeman area does tend to have some of the higher end properties with more land, more space, and the prices there do tend to pull that median a little bit higher. So if we look at just Bozeman city limits, those single family homes, there are 109 active listings with a median list price of $899,000. So let's go ahead and compare that to what's going on in Missoula. All residential properties, again, condos, townhomes, and single family. There are 309 properties available currently with a median list price of $659,000. 229 of those are single family homes with a median list price of $720,000. So when you take them side by side and you really compare a single family home in city limits in Bozeman at $899 versus a single family home in Missoula at $720,000, that is quite the difference. Of course, Bozeman and Missoula also have some differences in the vibe or the lifestyle. Both are laid back and friendly. Just don't talk about moving here online or any of the online forums, and people are pretty friendly overall. Missoula does feel more like a big city, a little bit more urban with a diverse food scene, and often is described with a more bohemian vibe. Downtown is bisected by the Clark Fork River, has unique shops, restaurants, breweries, and a more relaxed vibe. Missoula has a historical working class character due to the lumber industry roots and is more ethnically diverse by Montana standards. Missoula also has a vibrant art scene, the historic Wilma Theater, multiple art galleries and studios, the Montana Museum of Arts and Culture, and an annual International Wildlife Film Festival, an active local music scene with multiple venues. Missoula is definitely known to have better concerts and venues. Bozeman has a bit more of an affluent culture, with a growing art scene, a strong outdoor lifestyle emphasis, and adventure sports focus. The food culture is similar to Missoula, with a big emphasis on farm-to-table and upscale dining options. Bozeman's downtown is mostly focused on Main Street and surrounding blocks with boutiques, eateries, bars, and lots of history, with more of a mountain town feel with a blend of outdoor enthusiasts and a growing tech presence. Bozeman also has more craft beer than anywhere else in Montana, with an active craft brewing and distilling scene. Both towns have great downtown areas. Some have the impression that Missoula is a bit more friendly, has more going on, and is overall more fun. And Bozeman is catching up, but is definitely seen as a little bit more yuppie. And many argue the food scene in Bozeman is superior, but feel free to argue your points in the comment section below. So which one is it? Which one do you like better? I would love to hear your thoughts. Many people think that Missoula is a little bit weirder, a little bit less bougie, and more Montana overall, known as Zoo Town for the wild parties and people, but also just because zoo kind of sounds a little bit like Missoula. A lot of people do say that Bozeman isn't real Montana anymore, hence the nickname Bosangeles, but being born and raised here, having grown up here, it is still very much Montana in my opinion. Both are wonderful college towns with outdoor access, friendly people, and have different weather patterns, landscape, and differences in the overall culture. Plus, each town has that state university with its own unique academic strengths. In my opinion, neither one is definitively better. It just depends on your lifestyle and your preferences and what's most important to you. So with all of that, if you're curious to learn more about Bozeman or Missoula, please do feel free to get in touch. I'd be happy to answer questions. You can text me, email me, or give me a call. And if you'd like to watch more right now, this is a playlist all about living in the Bozeman area with vlog tours, pros and cons, and so much more. And until next time, I hope to show you around.